Since this GMADE Sawback Sport is an older kit, unfortunately the screws that come with this kit are all Phillips head screws. Hey guys, welcome back to REVolutionX RC, and welcome to part 1 of this GMADE Sawback Sport build. In this part of the build, we are going to tackle the axles. For step 1, you'll need these following parts. And just be careful that you use the smaller E-clip rather than the larger one. And for the gears, I like using Versachem brake caliper grease. So I'll go ahead and do that now. And that completes step 1 of the axles. Since this GMADE Sawback Sport is an older kit, unfortunately the screws that come with this kit are all Phillips head screws, as you can see here. While I do like the color of the black stock screws better, I did go ahead and buy this Team K&K stainless screw kit for the GMADE Sawback. And one of the reasons I got it is because I prefer hex hardware. So these are all hex heads. And so I'll be using these. I will be showing these stock screws as I go along, but I will be replacing them with screws from this Team K&K kit while I actually assemble it. And I'll put a link to this screw kit in the description below. So just check the description for where you can buy these screw kits. Alright, here are the stock screws, the stock 3x10 Phillips head screws and the stock M3 lock nuts. And on this side here you have the Team K&K stainless steel screws. Let's move along to step 2. Now you want to make sure that These C hubs are facing in the right direction, and they have arrows here that show you. The arrows facing up, and that's what you want. Oh, they're in first. There. Right. And that completes step 2. For step 3, you'll need these following parts. Now these are labeled as M2.6 by 6 in the manual, but the Team K&K counterparts only come as 2.5 by 6. So we'll see if it's actually the same as in M2.5, or it's actually, if there actually is a 2.6. But it seems like Team K&K thinks the M2.5 are correct, and we'll see. As far as these dog bone shafts go, there's 2 different lengths for the axle. You'll see that the longer side goes on this side of the axle, and the shorter side goes on this side. Now, the stock kit does come with dog bones. They do make universal CVDs or universals for as an upgrade for this. I do have them, but I'll build them with the dog bones first. Looks like the M2.5 by 6 screws provided by Team K&K do in fact fit, so we'll go ahead and use them. And that completes step 3. Now here are the parts that you'll need for step 4. Unfortunately for these kingpin screws, it looks like you'll have to stick with the Phillips hardware since Team K&K doesn't seem to have a hex equivalent. That completes step 4. For step 5, you'll need these following parts. Now for these 3 screws and nuts here, these are the Team K&K counterparts. And that completes step 5. And we're now ready to continue putting on the leaf springs. For step 6, we finally move into the leaf spring assembly, and you'll need these following parts. Now you'll notice that there are 3 sizes for leaves here, and there's a different ways to set this up. So in the manual you'll see here, you've got 3 different setups, which is the large spring and the medium spring, and that's the soft type setup. Then you've got the large spring and the medium spring along with zip ties, which is the standard setup. And then you've got the large spring with the medium spring and the small spring at the bottom and the zip ties, which is the hard setup. And here it describes what each setup is suited for. So the soft type setup is suited more for rock piles, mountains, off-road, and not as much on-road. The standard setup is kind of average on the rock pile, average on mountain, pretty good for off-road, and pretty good and average on road. And the hard type setup would be not so great on rock piles, not so great on mountain, not so great on off-road either, but great for on-road, which is basically not what I want. In this case, I will be going with the soft type setup, which is just the medium size spring and the large spring. Now in the manual it does have the medium spring above the large spring, which is kind of unusual, and I think they do that just because they're worried about the axle wrap or bending these springs. Traditionally you would have this under the large spring, so I'm not sure yet what I'm going to do. I don't know if I'm going to follow the directions or just put the medium spring underneath the large spring, because I also will plan to get the anti-wrap bars that they have as an upgrade. So we'll go ahead and start with step 6, and I won't be using these small springs right here, so I won't need these at all. And I will be using the large springs and the medium springs. I also will not be using the zip ties because I'm not going to be using the standard setup. I am going to be using this mostly for mountain, rock pile, trailing. So the soft setup would work best for me. And that completes step 6, the leaf spring assembly, and in my case, the soft setup. For step 7, you'll need these following parts. You'll need 2 M3x25 screws and these M3 lock nuts. Here are the Team K and K equivalents. That completes step 7. For step 8, you'll need these following parts. You'll need 4 M3x12 screws, 4 M3 lock nuts, and 4 3mm washers. Here are the Team K and K equivalents. You'll notice I didn't put the Team K and K equivalent of these washers. They do have washers in the Team K and K kit, but this is something that you really don't need to replace. It's not really dependent on Phillips head screws or hex head. You'll also need a servo of your choice. In this case, I will be using a DS servo 35 kg. These are great budget servos. I'll put a link to this description below. You can get these off of Amazon, and this is just a good budget option. I don't need anything more stronger or more durable for this build, so these budget servos will work just fine. Now these DS servos do come with a servo horn, and they're a clamp-in servo horn. The only problem I have with it is due to the way that the servo drag link and steering link are set up. This one is a little bit too long. So I've gotten a Boom Racing low profile servo horn. I'll put a link to this in the description below as well, but this will clear those links. And that completes step 8. For step 9, you'll need these following parts. Apparently the camera wasn't recording, but I've got one side of the rod ends on. Once again, these are Protect RC shock pliers. They make it really easy to put the pivot balls into the rod ends, as well as to hold a link or a shock shaft to put your rod end on. I have here a 3D printed tool to help me with the rod ends. Now, this particular link is supposed to have 101 millimeters between the rod ends. And let's take a look. There you go. It's just about 101. Maybe loosen it up a little bit. Alright, so for this particular link, we want the shorter end to have the rod end facing this way, and the longer end to have the rod end facing that way. And that completes step 9. For step 10, you'll need the following parts. You'll need one M3x16, one M3x20, and one M3x25, two M3 lock nuts, and one M3 nut. And here are the King K and K equivalents. Now they say to use an M3x16 in here. In my case, I think I might be able to get away with using something smaller because I don't know if I really need the lock nut in the back. But for now, actually it doesn't use a lock nut, but it does use a M3 nut. But since I am using a metal servo horn, it might not be needed. Go ahead and put this on for now. I mean, this is something I'll be changing up later anyway. But for the video, we'll just go ahead and do it this way. There you see there's the M3 nut and the screw. And that completes step 10. And that completes this part of the build series, the front and the rear axles as well as the steering setup. I hope you enjoyed this part of the build series. Thanks for watching, please like and subscribe, and hit that notification bell to be notified for the next part of my GMADE Sawback Sport build series. Thanks for watching.